Environmental Resource Committee, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Number 3, public comment. We have no public comment today. Number 4, approval of the July 1st, 2025 committee meeting. Take a motion. Motion by Mr. Schoenberg and second by, I gotta learn these names. Randy DeBruin? Okay. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. If everyone would please mute your phones. The Marathon County Environmental Resource Committee is now meeting in a public hearing on location plans specified and purpose for the following projects. Tim Vreeland on behalf of Ed and Linda Yoder, farmland preservation to RR Rural Residential and GA General Ag, Town of Eau Plaine. Claire and Susanna Weaver, LDR Low Density Residential to General Agricultural Town of Wien. Tim Vreeland on behalf of Andrew and Paul Butchkuski, General Ag, Neighborhood Commercial to RR Residential and GA General Ag, Town of Reed. Adam B. Munt on behalf of Stephen and Karen Kunze, Farmland Preservation LLD Low Density Residence, Town of Hall. I would like to introduce our committee. We have Randy DeBrook, Al Drabeck, John Kroll, Jay Schoenberg, Jerry Kurth, and myself, Rick Seefeld, and Tom Miller as our FSA office, and Marilyn Benz as our town's representative. Also present is our director, Lori Miskin, director, Christy here? Yeah, Christy Hendrickson, Shade Harvey, land resource manager, Nicole Deloney, office manager, Garrett Pagel, land and youth specialist. The establishment of the ERC committee is required by law for purpose of administration of county ordinance and land conservation program. The committee must follow state laws and local ordinance as written. The committee cannot change or ignore any part of the ordinance or state laws, but must apply the laws as written. The purpose of the committee is to hear and decide on proposed ordinances and ordinances revision, rezoning petitions, and provide directions on land conservation and planning program. The ERC committee will give a full and fair hearing to any person applying for a rezone position. A tape recording is being made of the meeting, which will assist with preparation of the written hearing minutes. The committee is interested in hearing all pertinent committees and questions, or comments and questions, excuse me. Each hearing will be opened by reading the public hearing notice and allowing staff to present a staff report including evidence from any on-site inspections. The applicant and anyone wishing to testify will be sworn in and will give testimony. Witness will be called in these orders. First, in favor; second, opposed; third, interesting in. The committee may ask questions of the zoning staff and applications. It is necessary that we set a responsible time on individual statements and on the overall length of the hearing. Hearing should state your name and present your testimony or questions so it begins part of the official record. We request you avoid repetition. Once the committee has all the necessary facts, the chair will close the hearing, allowing no further testimony, and the committee will deliberate and decide in front of the public whether the applicant has met its standards and in the ordinance. No additional testimony from the public is allowed during the deliberation. However, the committee may question staff for purpose and clarification. After a this decision is made, the committee will proceed to the next hearing. Many of the decisions may be made by the committee are a recommendation to the Marathon County Board of Supervisors who will take up the matter at a further county board meeting. Contact staffs for more information regarding this county board process. The committee will now hear the applicants of that I read off earlier. Tim Breland on behalf of Edward and Linda Yoder. Claire and Susanna Weaver. Tim Breland on behalf of Andrew and Paul Butchkuski, and Adam Munt on behalf of Stephen Coons. Okay, now I will swear in the staff. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth and the whole truth?
I do.
Thank you.
All right, this is for Edwin and Lydia Yoder, petition to rezone land, staff report August 5th, 2025 for the Environmental Resources Committee. Petitioner is Tim Vreeland at 6103 Dawn Street, Weston, Wisconsin, 54476. Property owners are Edwin and Lydia Yoder at 112890 Balsam Road, Stratford, Wisconsin, 54484. Area proposed to be rezoned is located on the north side of Balsam Road, just west of the intersection of Balsam Road and Galvin Avenue. The petition of Tim Vreeland on behalf of Edwin and Lydia Yoder to amend the General Code of Ordinance for Marathon County, Chapter 17 zoning code to rezone lands from FP Farmland Preservation to RR Rural Residential and GA General Agriculture, described as part of Parcel 2 of CSM 11474-48-156, located in the southeast quarter of the southwest quarter of Section 28, Township 27 North, Range 3 East, Huntville Plain. The area proposed to be rezoned to rural residential is described as Lot 1 of the preliminary CSM. The area remaining is proposed to be rezoned to general agriculture, parent parcel number as shown. The Townville Plain Town Board met on July 8th, 2025. Marathon County Environmental Resources Committee is meeting today, August 5th, 2025 at 3 p.m. A legal advertisement was published in the Wausau Daily Herald. Notice of zoning change request was also sent by regular mail to adjacent property owners within 300 feet of the subject property. The Townville Plain does participate in farmland preservation, and approximately 31.572 acres will be converted to general agriculture, and 4.698 acres will be converted to rural residential. On July 8th, 2025, the Townville Plain Town Board recommended approval to Marathon County's Environmental Resources Committee. Staff recommendation, the rezone meets all the zoning district standards as it relates to size, frontage, access, and dimension. The rezone also appears to be consistent with the purpose and intent of the town's comprehensive plan and as indicated by a town resolution. Based on the information provided above, findings of fact, conclusions of law, and the town's recommendation, it appears the rezone request meets all the rezone criteria and standards for rezoning. Therefore, CPZ staff recommend that the Environmental Resources Committee recommend approval to the Marathon County Board of Supervisors. Should the rezone be approved by Marathon County Board of Supervisors, CPZ staff recommend that the town update its comprehensive plan to reflect the zoning change if applicable. Edwin and Lydia Yoder are online for any questions.
Do we have any questions from Ed?
No, sounds good.
Okay, thank you. I will now request for anyone that is interested in favor of the applicant. I will announce it one more time. Anyone in favor?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, I think first would be board discussion, if there's any questions.
Okay. Sorry about that. I'm new at this, so. Okay. Any discussion from the committee? Okay. Now I'll request anyone in favor of the applicants? Anyone in favor? Anyone opposed of the applicants? Anyone interested in or may request or may appear? Okay, thank you. If no one else wishes to testify for the application, I now declare the public hearing on Tim Vreeland on behalf of Edward and Linda Yoder from FP Farm Preservation to Rural Residential and General Agriculture in the town of Oak Plain. The committee will now deliberate on the applicant and apply the standards of the zoning ordinance. Motion, John Kroll, or Supervisor Kroll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion to approve the petition of Tim Vreeland on behalf of Edwin and Lydia Yoder from FP Farmland Preservation to RR and GA General Agriculture. This motion is based on the town's approval, staff recommendation, findings of facts, and conclusions of law.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Second by Supervisor Kurth. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We will move on to the second applicant, Claire and Susanna Weaver, LDR, Low Density Residential and General Agriculture in the town of Wayne.
All right, so for this one, you'll notice that the resolution did not make its way into your packet. I do have it up here on the board, or on the screen right now. And it was heard on June 9th, and the town did vote to approve it. All right, so this is for Claire and Susanna Weaver, petition to rezone land, staff report August 5th, 2025 for the Environmental Resources Committee. Petitioners Claire and Susanna Weaver at 122203 Huckleberry Road, Edgar, Wisconsin, 54426. Property owner is the same. Area proposed to be rezoned is located just west of the intersection of Huckleberry Road and County Road M. The petition of Claire and Susanna Weaver to amend the General Code of Ordinance for Marathon County, Chapter 17 zoning code to rezone lands from LDR, Low Density Residential, to GA, General Agriculture, described as part of Lot 1 of CSM Volume 38, page 51, document number 1092612 in the town of Wayne, located in the northwest quarter of the northeast quarter of Section 16, Township 28 North, Range 4 East. Parent parcel as listed. The Town of Wayne Town Board met on June 9th, 2025. Marathon County Environmental Resource Committee is meeting today, August 5th, 2025 at 3 p.m. A legal advertisement was published in the Wausau Daily Herald. Notice of the zoning change request was also sent by regular mail to adjacent property owners within 300 feet of the subject property. On June 9th, 2025, the Town of Wayne Town Board recommended approval to Marathon County's Environmental Resources Committee. Staff recommendation, the rezone meets all the zoning district standards as it relates to size, frontage, access, and dimension. The rezone also appears to be consistent with the purpose and intent of the town's comprehensive plan and as indicated by a town resolution. Based on the information provided above, findings of fact, conclusions of law, and the town's recommendation, it appears the rezone request meets all the rezone criteria and standards for rezoning. Therefore, CPZ staff recommend that the Environmental Resource Committee recommend approval to the Marathon County Board of Supervisors. Should the rezone be approved by Marathon County Board of Supervisors, CPZ staff recommend that the town update its comprehensive plan to reflect the zoning change if applicable.
Okay, any questions from the committee? Seeing none, I will ask for anyone in favor of the applicant. Anyone in favor of the applicant? Anyone opposed of the applicant? Anyone opposed? Anyone interested? Okay. If no one else wishes to testify for the application, I will now declare the public hearing on Claire and Susanna Weaver, LDR to low-density residential to G-Ag Agriculture, Town of Wayne. I will take a motion. Supervisor Drabeck.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I would make a motion to approve the rezone of Claire and Susanna Weaver from low-density residential to general agriculture based on the finding of fact that's presented by staff and conclusions of law and the town's approval.
Your second. Supervisor Schoenberg. I think I pronounced that right. Maybe I didn't. Close enough, okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, everyone. We will move on to number 3. Tim Vreeland on behalf of Andrew and Paul Buchkuski, GA General Agriculture to NC Neighborhood Commercial to RR Rural Residential and to GA General Agriculture in the Town of Reed.
All right, this is for Audrey and Paul Buchkowski, petition to rezone land, staff report August 5th, 2025 for the Environmental Resource Committee. Petitioner is Tim Vreeland at 6103 Dawn Street, Weston, Wisconsin, 54476. Property owners are Audrey and Paul Buchkowski at 217753 County Road Q, Hatley, Wisconsin, 54440. Area proposed to be rezoned is located on the corner of County Road Q and Budleski Drive. The petition of Tim Vreeland on behalf of Audrey and Paul Buchkowski to amend the General Code of Ordinance for Marathon County, Chapter 17 Zoning Code to rezone lands from GA General Agriculture and NC Neighborhood Commercial to RR Rural Residential and GA General Agriculture located in part of the northwest quarter of the northeast quarter of Section 9, Township 27 North, Range 9 East, Town of Reed. Area to be rezoned to RR Rural Residential is described as Lot 1. An area to be rezoned to GA General Agriculture is described as the remainder of the existing parcel shown on the preliminary CSM. Parent parcel number as listed. Town of Reed Town Board met on July 8th, 2025. Marathon County's Environmental Resource Committee is meeting today, August 5th, 2025 at 3 p.m. A legal advertisement was published in the Wausau Daily Herald. Notice of the zoning change request was also sent by regular mail to adjacent property owners within 300 feet of the subject property. On July 8th, 2025, the Town of Reed Town Board recommended approval to Marathon County's Environmental Resources Committee. Staff recommendation, the rezone meets all the zoning district standards as it relates to size, frontage, access, and dimension. The rezone also appears to be consistent with the purpose and intent of the town's comprehensive plan and as indicated by town resolution. Based on the information provided above, findings of fact, conclusions of law, and the town's recommendation, it appears the rezone request meets all the rezone criteria and standards for rezoning. Therefore, CPZ staff recommend that the Environmental Resources Committee recommend approval to the Marathon County Board of Supervisors. Should the rezone be approved by Marathon County Board of Supervisors, CPZ staff recommend that the town update its comprehensive plan to reflect the zoning change if applicable.
Okay, any questions for Garrett? Okay, I will ask anyone in favor of the applicant. Anyone in favor? Anyone opposed? Anyone interested? Okay, we'll close the hearing now. If no one else wishes to testify for the application, I will now declare the public hearing on Tim Vreeland on behalf of Andrew and Paul Buchkuski from GA General Agricultural and NC Neighborhood Commercial to RR Rural Residential and GA General Agriculture in Town of Reed. Take a motion. Supervisor Kroll.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I would like to make a motion to approve the petition of Audrey and Paul Bukowski from GA General Agriculture and NC to RR and GA General Agriculture in the Town of Reed. This decision is based on the town's approval, staff recommendations, finding of facts, and conclusion of law.
Do I hear a second? Second by Representative Mueller. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. We'll move on to number 4. Adam and B, am I pronouncing this right? How did, Munt, okay. On behalf of Stephen and Karen Kunze, yep. FP, Farm Preservation, and LDR to Low Density Residential, Town of Hall. Garrett?
All right, this is for Stephen and Karen Kunze, petition to rezone land, staff report August 5th, 2025 for the Environmental Resources Committee. Petitioner is Adam Munt, located at 226081 Silver Maple Lane, Colby, Wisconsin, 54421. Property owners are Stephen and Karen Kunze at 104393 Elderberry Road, Colby, Wisconsin, 54421. Area proposed to be rezoned is located just north of the intersection of Silver Maple Lane and Huckleberry Road. The petition of Adam B. Munt on behalf of Stephen and Karen Kunze to amend the General Code of Ordinance for Marathon County, Chapter 17 zoning code to rezone lands from FP Farmland Preservation to LDR Low Density Residential, located in part of the northwest quarter of the southwest quarter of Section 9, Township 28 North, Range 2 East, Town of Hall. Area proposed to be rezoned to LDR Low Density Residential is described as Lot 1 of the preliminary CSM. Parent parcel numbers as shown. The Town of Hall Town Board met on July 14, 2025. Marathon County Environmental Resources Committee is meeting today, August 5th, 2025 at 3 p.m. A legal advertisement was published in the Wausau Daily Herald. Notice of the zoning change request was also sent by regular mail to adjacent property owners within 300 feet of the subject property. The Town of Hull participates in farmland preservation. Approximately 0.75 acres will be converted to low-density residential. On July 14, 2025, the Town of Hull Town Board recommended approval to Marathon County's Environmental Resources Committee. Staff recommendation, the rezone meets all the zoning district standards as it relates to size, frontage, access, and dimension. The rezone also appears to be consistent with the purpose and intent of the town's comprehensive plan and as indicated by the town resolution. Based on the information provided above, findings of fact, conclusions of law, and the town's recommendation, It appears the rezone request meets all the rezone criteria and standards for rezoning. Therefore, CPC staff recommend that the Environmental Resources Committee recommend approval to the Marathon County Board of Supervisors. Should the rezone be approved by Marathon County Board of Supervisors, CPC staff recommend that the town update its comprehensive plan to reflect the zoning change if applicable.
Okay, any discussion or questions for Garrett? Supervisor Kroll?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Garrett, I'm seeing that it's listed as 38 acres and only 0.75 acres is going to be converted. Would the remaining acreage still be in farmland preservation?
Correct, yeah, it meets the 35 acre threshold,
Okay.
so that'll remain.
Okay, yeah, I guess I was just kind of curious, what is the standard then for farmland or for a farm consolidation lot?
So a farm consolidation lot, the buildings, the residents, the farm residents has to be there prior to January 1st of 2014.
Okay,
And then it can't move, it can't shift, it can't be any of those. And then it has to be between 2 and 4.99 acres.
all right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I will ask anyone in favor of the applicant? Anyone in favor? Anyone opposed? Anyone interested? Okay, if no one else wishes to testify for the application, I will now declare the public hearing on Adam and B. Munt on behalf of Stephen.
I'm sorry.
Yep. And Stephen Karen Kunze, FP Farmland Preservation to LDR Low Density Residential, Town of Hall. I will now take a motion for. Supervisor Schoenberg?
I make a motion to approve the petition of Adam B. Munt and on behalf of Stephen and Karen Quincy to amend to the General Code of Ordinance of Marathon County, Chapter 17, zoning code to rezone land from farm preservation to LDR low-density residential located in part of northeast of the southwest section of 9 in the town of Hall.
Do I hear a second? Second by Supervisor Drabek. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, everyone. We will now move into 5B. Review and possible recommendations by county board for its consideration, town zoning changes pursuant to 60.62-3 Wisconsin statute. None. Review the possible recommendations to county board for its consideration. None. 5D. Review and all possible actions. D1 Brewer, second additional plot, Town of Spencer. And Mr. Decker is on virtual?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. So we have, it's Bowers County Plat, second edition. There was a Bowers County Plat just to the west of this one. It's in the town of Spencer. Preliminary plat stage at this point for the Environmental Resources Committee, August 5th, 2025. Plat requirements, survey plat complies with Chapter 236 of the Wisconsin statutes, Chapter 87 of the Wisconsin Administrative Code, and Chapter 18 of the Marathon County Code of Ordinances regarding subdivisions and mapping. Zoning, plat is in the town of Spencer and is county zoned. All lots being created meet zoning standards as set forth in Chapter 17 of the Marathon County Code of Ordinances. Environmental conditions, a stormwater management plan was not required with the preliminary plat because no infrastructure is being proposed. And as well, erosion control plan is also not required, and no wetland areas were identified in the platted area. Sanitary sewer, the Bauer preliminary plat is approved by the Powitz Department based on the following. The soil types on the parcels are mainly withy silt loam, 0 to 3% slopes, and Marshfield silt loam, 0 to 3% slopes. Both soil types are commonly associated with holding tank suitability. The soil test received for the plat has pits shown for each lot, as well as descriptions that correlate to what is commonly expected in those soil types. Given this information, the Powitz Department has approved the subdivision. Access, all proposed lots have access to Lorene Drive. That's already there and be open to traffic. Prior to the submittal of the Bowers County Plat, second edition, preliminary plat for approval, concept plat correspondence took place. A previous certified survey map was recently approved and recorded on July 1st. Lot 1 of this certified survey map is being further subdivided by this plat. Design concepts and plans were discussed and agreed upon by all parties involved. The preliminary plat reflects discussions with CPZ staff. Recommendation, based on the information provided, CPZ staff recommend that the Environmental Resources Committee approve the proposed preliminary plat of Bowers County Plat Second Edition. Any questions?
Any question for Dave? Okay, we do need.
I will
a motion on
note
that.
too, also, if you look, to avoid confusion, the lots are numbered differently than we would typically see. Most often you see they're numbered 1. They begin with number 1. This is a continuation from the original Bowers County plat, so they picked up with the numbering system moving forward from that one. So just in case anyone had a question on that.
Any questions? Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve this. Motion by Supervisor Drabek, second.
Thank you.
Supervisor,
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I'd make a motion to approve Bowers, County Plat 2, edition, Town of Spencer.
okay. And second was by Supervisor Schronberg. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Dave. Okay, moving on to 6, educational presentations, outcome monitor reports, and committee discussion. A, department updates, conservation planning and zoning, park recreation and forest, and solid waste department, none. Number 7, policy issues for potential committee determination. 7A, drafting change to the Marathon County Code ordinances, Chapter 11.02, Animal Waste Management Ordinance. Christine?
That was not on. So good afternoon again, everyone. Good to see you all. Matt and I are very excited to be touching base with you today because we had a homework assignment from a couple of months ago related to creating a work group for our proposed animal waste ordinance changes that we had started talking with you all about a year ago now. So we've been touching base with you almost monthly, but this is the first month in almost a year where I'm excited to come before you and say something like, I think we've got it. I think we're there. It's awesome. I've talked with just a few of you in passing since the last farmer work group meeting that we had in June. And my only regret with that meeting is not having it on video camera. It was the most wonderful meeting. And let me tell you that that group has been on a journey over the past couple of months because we had such a diverse group of participants. We had about 25 people in the work group. Many of them were farms of all shapes and sizes. So the big CAFO farms, over 1,000 animal units, very small dairy farms that maybe didn't have any manure storage or anything. We had lots of medium to large size farms. So anywhere from, 100 to 999 animal units. We had people without livestock. We had people with water resources backgrounds, like the Wisconsin Valley Improvement Company folks. We had some DNR people pop in and out. So it's been wonderful. And I'm so thankful that everyone has had a good attitude and open mind throughout that work group. But at this last work group meeting, at the end of it, it was so interesting. There were several people that almost gave like a little testimony about how glad they were they participated in this process because they felt they've changed so much along the way, just in terms of learning more, learning what other people are doing to troubleshoot, to solve problems. And even for a lot of them, it was the first time they've really participated in the public process of, how local government works. And so I think we all walked away from these last couple months being like, there were some rough patches, yes, right? Because a lot of people have very strong opinions. We're upper Midwesterners, right? We know what we're about. We're strongly opinionated. And so with that, at the end of this meeting, we've been talking about a lot over the past couple months, and we did take an actual vote in the group via hand raising saying, do you feel good about presenting this to the Environmental Resources Committee, that these are our 3 items we've come up with that we want to make as changes to the animal waste ordinance? And by majority vote, we got the hand raises saying this is what we want to do going forward. So we'll talk with you about what these proposed changes are to the ordinance today. And then we have a slide at the end just kind of reframing what we're asking you guys to do with this information. So we started out, just to remind you, about 9 months ago, talking to you about how our Marathon County Land and Water Management Plan, along with other Marathon County plans, had really focused on minimizing the winter spreading of manure on frozen soils. So when we first connected with you on this, we were focusing on that one item that previous plans had targeted. But due to this work group, it has kind of morphed and changed just a little bit to make sure that it seems extremely doable, fair to all parties involved, and also is something that is going to bring about tremendous reductions in the amount of phosphorus that is entering into our surface waters in Marathon County. So that's the end goal with all of these things. So Matt will talk to you about the first compromise that came out of the work group.
So one common theme that the group kept coming back to time after time was the need for more nutrient management. And how do we get there? So everybody thought nutrient management plans are valuable. Even the ones that don't have it, they saw the value in it with soil sampling and then actually, allocating what we're putting on for nutrients, no more than the crop need, trying to minimize our losses as much as possible. So with that, we'll kind of go into the first option that we'll discuss. This is a winter spreading permit. Now, if a farm has a nutrient management plan, they would be exempt from this. And this is just for liquid manure again. Just have to remind everybody. So we're not talking about solid manure or semi-solid, but just liquid manure. So if they have a nutrient management plan, anybody that has it would be exempt from a winter spreading permit because they essentially already have a winter spreading plan in their nutrient management plan. So the groups that we're targeting more are groups that don't have nutrient management plans but apply liquid manure in the winter. And we do offer classes for this to have nutrient management plans, so that would be one option that somebody could come through our class and write a nutrient management plan, work with us. If they just want to do the winter spreading permit, that would also be an option for them. We'd probably set it up the same way or very similar to what Dane County does. For the permit, it would be good for 4 years, and right now, the price we'd be looking at is about $200. And that'd be good for 4 years, so it'd be $50 per year. So the second option, Kirsty will discuss.
Yeah, and with all of these options, we also know there's plenty of people who are already doing all these things, and none of these changes will affect them whatsoever. So what Matt just finished talking about, if you already have a nutrient management plan, you don't even have to worry about it. Nothing changes for you. You don't have to get a permit. And if you don't want to monkey around with the permit, get a nutrient management plan. You're all set. That's great. So we really thought as a group that's such a nice vehicle to allow people to, get a nutrient management plan. We always have a free way to do that in Marathon County. We will always have that option. And then if they're really dead set on not getting a plan and they want that permit, it's cheap and easy and available to them as well. So the second thing, and I should ask, Mr. Chair, do you want me to stop and ask if there's questions about each one along the way, or do you want me to go through these 3 items and then do questions?
What does the committee decide here too? I'm going to ask. Keep on rolling? Okay.
Keep
We're
her
going to keep on going.
Okay, we'll keep her going. All right. So the second option is most closely related to what we first discussed several months back. This is seasonal spreading limitations for medium-sized farms. So if you remember when we talked about no winter spreading of liquid manure in just February and March, which was our original ask, those 60 days for everyone to come together and not spread liquid manure, because that is our highest risk of runoff into surface waters. The biggest issue was that was the concern for how that could be cost prohibitive to small farms who do not have manure storage. So one compromise that came out of this is saying that for just medium to large size farms, this will apply. So that same concept for farms 300 to 999 animal units, no spreading of liquid manure in February and March. So that 60-day high-risk window, we are asking medium to large-size farms to not spread liquid manure. Now, farms that are bigger than 1,000 animal units, which we call CAFOs, they already cannot apply liquid manure during that time. They already cannot apply liquid manure on frozen soils, so like the end of November until usually close to April. So now if weather conditions allow, spreading can occur. So one question that came out of the group is, what about those years where, if you guys remember, I think it was 2 years ago where it was in the 70s, in March, where it was like the start of summer in March. If the soil's not frozen, then yes, you can spread manure. This is when the soils are frozen in February and March. So when we do have those oddball years and the soil's not frozen, yes, you can get an early start. And that is consistent with how the state lays out NR 243, which is the CAFO regulations. Now we're using the word medium-sized farm in this because that's what the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency uses to define a medium-sized farm. They say if you are between 300 to 999, that is a medium-sized farm. And then 1,000 animal units and over, that is a large farm. So what that looks like in real life, 300 animal units is usually like 150 milk cows and 150 young stock. So also just as a reminder, if you're thinking, well, how does that work in relation to our first topic with the winter spreading permit and nutrient management? So even if you're a medium to large size farm and you have a nutrient management plan, you still can't spread in February and March for those 60 days. So we knew you were going to ask, how many farms are we talking here? How many people does this affect? So here's the demographics on it. It's about 40 to 60 farms in Marathon County that are between 300 to 999 animal units. About 40 to 50 of those farms, out of about 60 farms, do have long-term manure storage. Some of that could be much longer than 60 days. Some could be about 60 days, but we call it long-term because it's not something that you just use for a very short period. There, in that group, there's likely about just 6 to 10 farms that are still daily hauling manure. And this is an estimate, okay, because we're using the very best data we have available. We really tried to dig and get this information. But as you know, unless you're driving out to some of these farms and asking them questions to their faces, you don't always know the exact details. But this is good data that we're using to figure this out. So that's the demographics we have on that. And as a reminder, with all of this, we have been talking all along about a delayed implementation period. 3 to 5 years. If we have 6 to 10 farms that need a plan for what they're going to do for 60 days for manure, we have 3 to 5 years to figure out how we can help them in a 60-day window. That's plenty of time to figure out an alternative plan for 60 days. Okay? And then the last one Matt and I are going to split talking about. I expect Supervisor Krull to start running laps around the room because we all know how excited he got about buffers previously. But this is another resounding agreement that came out of our work group is we all agreed this county needs more buffers on our landscape. We all drive by way too many farm fields that after a rain event or the spring melt off, you can see the literal pathways that runoff is finding its way into our streams. And Matt will go through some of the numbers that he modeled out for you all, but I cannot begin to tell you how powerful it is to have some vegetation next to the stream bank to stop that runoff. And we do not have strong buffer rules in Wisconsin. We have neighboring states such as Minnesota that require statewide buffers, and they've seen tremendous success with it. But Wisconsin needs a leader to step up and say, this is common sense that we should have a buffer along a stream. And I am so proud to say that our farmers in this work group agree with that, and they agree that Marathon County can be that leader to get buffers on the ground. So Matt will walk you through this. I'll just say before he gets into the numbers that implementing a very minimal 35-foot buffer are things that we already have written into other parts of planning documents in Marathon County. So our zoning ordinance related to shoreline zoning that Shad and Garrett work with, it already has in there a 35-foot setback for vegetative buffers that they require their shoreline folks who are building houses and everything to have that 35 feet of vegetation. So why we require it in that situation and not in others doesn't make a lot of sense. That should be in unity across the board. We also have it written into the county board approved land and water plan in 2021 that we will have 35-foot buffers along all of our streams. So it's already been a couple of years that the county board has agreed that this is a good idea. So this isn't a new idea. It's been out there for Marathon County supervisors for years to say, we get behind this idea. We just want to put an action plan into place to see it happen. So here's a little snippet. This is a snippet of the Marathon County Land and Water Plan. And there's several spots in this that lay out what's been previously stated. So for example, objective 2.1 says reduce agricultural runoff to surface water. That's what we're talking about. And then strategy number 2 says develop a comprehensive and consistent approach to restore riparian 35-foot wide buffers to enhance buffering of ag runoff and improve water quality. So we have an outcome measure listed below that. In the first one below stated under A, 35% of impaired cropland buffers under 35 feet will be reestablished by 2030. So this will get us above and beyond that goal, but this has already been laid out for us. So I'll let Matt go through the details with you.
So we talked with a UW-Madison professor on how we could model this and look at it. And actually a program that we use currently called SNAP Plus, we use it for nutrient management planning, is a good way that we can just look at buffers And we want to just look at these areas. A lot of the areas that we're going to be talking about are usually areas of marginal production, decreased profitability. Like I mentioned, we can use SNAP Plus to model both the phosphorus reductions and the sediment reductions. One thing to keep in mind is that not all fields are created equally. So we have different slopes, different soil types, different management techniques on those fields, fertility, the distance to water, how far it actually takes to get to some water, the drainage areas, and then the soil test that also goes along with it. So all these different things kind of play into what the reductions are. And when I did the modeling, we used very average numbers, but we did look at all the different soils that cropland encompasses, and I'll kind of just show that table real quick next. But one thing that we did find is that in the tech note, it showed that reductions for buffers can be 70 to 85% for sediment. When we talked to the professor, she said the same thing, that she's seen some reductions that are also that high. So next, we kind of took a look at all the ag soils in Marathon County, and then what side of the county they were located on. So, we have a good mix of them here, west to east. In the county, we have about a little over 300,000 crop acres. So all these different soils that we have listed, we have a total of about 295,000 acres. So pretty good representation across the county. We use all these different soil types when we did the modeling, so everything was on a weighted average for the modeling. So essentially, the soils that there's more soil or there's more acres of a certain soil, that has a higher influence on what the reductions are. So if we look at the first one, which is just dairy rotations, for a phosphorus reduction, the range was 1 to 9 pounds per acre per year. The buffer that's in SNAP Plus is a 30-foot buffer, and it's assumed to be at the edge of the field where the highest amount of runoff is occurring. Now, for those reductions for phosphorus, it was anywhere from 25 to 100% when there was a buffer applied. The weighted reduction, when we're looking at it, is about 60%, or about 4 pounds per acre per year for phosphorus. For sediment, pretty good range again, from 0.1 to 7 tons per acre per year. If we're looking at that as a percentage, about 33 to 90% reduction. And the weighted reduction was about 80% per year, or 2.6 tons per acre per year. So again, both the reductions, 60 to 80%, pretty significant amounts. That's in an ideal situation with the buffer sized appropriately to the field. Sometimes a 30-foot buffer probably isn't going to be large enough for some of these large fields that we see out there. Also, depending on which way the field's draining, fields can drain multiple ways. So sometimes a buffer may only be appropriate along one edge of the field, where other cases it may need to surround 3/4 of the field. So just kind of things to keep in the back of your mind. Now, if we look at cash grain rotations, here reductions pretty similar again. 80% weighted reduction, or about 3 pounds per acre per year for phosphorus. If we look at sediment, pretty significant reductions again, almost 90%, and 3.4 tons per acre per year. Again, very good, high reductions. We talked with the UW professor about that, if what we were seeing is realistic, and she said yes. Some of the modeling she's done, she's seen very similar results. And when they've done actual field studies comparing the modeling to what they're seeing in the field for actual reductions, they're very similar. So there is the potential to have really large reductions with buffers that are strategically placed in the county. Like I mentioned before, some crops management will have greater potential for reductions. It just really depends on those fields and how they're managed and their locations. Like I mentioned, 30-foot buffers may be too small. One thing that we need to, and we've seen it this year more than ever before, is that we really need a lot of grass waterways put back in the county. We see some areas that are suffering quite a bit. Very large gullies, very large washout areas. There's one spot that I was out to early this spring where the gully was honestly up to my shoulder deep and several feet wide. So, these are the kind of things that we have to really fix before we can get on to the next step. There are a lot of gullies out there. When we drove the landscape just a few weeks ago, The areas that got hit hard with some of those heavy rains look pretty rough. Like I mentioned before, SNAP Plus, it's best case scenarios. Not every field's going to be perfect, but there is a lot of potential with buffers to have some significant reductions.
And one other nice aspect of the buffers too is so much of what we've been talking about with surface water improvements, they have been related to livestock, the livestock sector. And our work group had said, well, we really need to make sure we're including cash grain folks who don't have livestock, who have access to hundreds or thousands of acres of cropland. What can they do to help improve surface waters too? And buffers apply to everyone. Doesn't matter what you own or what you doing. It's, it's countywide. It's countywide. So our ask of you today, our ask of ERC is to have your approval to begin drafting these 3 revisions to the animal waste ordinance as presented. The reason we are asking you to vote and kind of give your initial blessing over these revisions is it is a great deal of time and energy to draft revisions to an ordinance. We've already, of course, put a lot of time and energy into working on this over the past year or so, but we certainly don't want to waste staff time or resources to research and meet with conservation partners and state agencies and have a draft for you if it's something that the group already just can't really get behind. We'd rather know that now instead of drafting it, showing you the draft, and you declining it right away. So we just want to be here to answer questions, do whatever we can to work out the kinks now, and then we'd love for you to let us know if this is something that you're supporting. We also wanted to communicate to you that we would envision future outreach related to this, should you give us permission to begin drafting this ordinance and then present it to you this fall. We did already have a few open houses and educational sessions earlier this year, and we told those folks that came to those events, give us a couple months to come up with compromises, to connect with our Environmental Resources Committee, and then we will regroup in the fall and have another round of open houses for people to come and learn what's different, what's new, ask questions. So we'd be doing that this fall as well. We're thinking October or November is when we would have that draft available for you to give your initial approval to. And once ERC would approve a draft, then what we would do is we also have an approval process that we need to go through either the Wisconsin DNR or the Wisconsin Department of Ag before it would go to the full county board. The reason we would need to do that in the interim between ERC and county board is because what we're proposing would go above and beyond the very basic state standards that they ask for farmers. So it's a local ordinance that would be stricter than state standards. So in those few scenarios around the state, one of those state agencies needs to approve and sign off on them. So we've already connected with some of those folks preemptively, so they're in the loop. We've been communicating with them. They've been very supportive. They've been very excited, transparently, about what we're doing here, and they agree that it really needs to happen somewhere in Wisconsin. So what an opportunity we have here together. I know I maybe sound like a broken record as we've been on this journey together over the past few months talking about this, but we really do have an opportunity to do something special here in Marathon County and change it for the better for future generations. I mean, to come up with something very simple and common sense that we can do that's reducing phosphorus by up to 90% off of crop fields is truly phenomenal. So I hope we can work together on this. Thank you for your time.
Okay, any questions from the committee? Supervisor Drabeck?
Marilyn.
Oh,
Have you
Marilyn?
ever heard of waterways from, say, one wetland going down to the field to another wetland where it prevents erosion? So I know someone's that have done that, and then you don't have any erosion because the water's able to flow down through those waterways, whatever you want to call it, and it goes from one wetland down to another wetland. That's just a different terminology.
Yeah, yeah. to have that continual vegetative path for water to keep flowing until it gets to a bigger water body, it makes a world of difference. If we saw more of that too, that would help as much as these numbers you just saw on the screen. So you're right on.
Okay. Chair Gibbs?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Christie, a couple of questions I have. So you were talking about 6 to 10 farms that might be affected by needing to come up with some kind of storage facility for the 2-month waiting holding period for non-spreading. Is there going to be, or do we know if we're going to be able to work with those farms as far as cost share potential on some management practices that could be put in place? And if so, have we had any outreach? And I don't know that we probably have because we're still in the discussion phase. But what's the thought of if there is going to be, or potentially is there going to be any cost sharing available for those farms or those potential farms? Because even though it's 6 to 10 farms, it's 6 to 10 farms that we're probably talking about a significant investment that they may need to be making.
Yes, I'm glad you asked that. We absolutely would envision working hand in hand with every one of those farms. If this would pass, I mean, that would essentially be our first action item, is to immediately connect with those farms, but they would be included in the mailings first for all these open houses, for all these educational sessions to provide feedback. Keep in mind, as we discussed in previous months, this does not necessarily mean they have to construct expensive storage. We do have many rentable manure storages in Marathon County as well that have been state-funded constructed storages that are empty and available where they could potentially rent storage. It's just for 60 days. So oftentimes, we would try to first troubleshoot the most cost-effective way to help them. That being said, to help with cost sharing over a period of years for 6 to 10 farms between our office and our local NRCS office, that would be absolutely no problem at all, and there would be funds available. Depending on the size of their farms, I'm sure it would not cover all of the cost. I mean, to have 300 animal units and still be daily hauling manure, that seems extremely challenging. So maybe they would be eager to construct storage. Maybe they'd be looking for a different route, but we absolutely would envision immediately connecting and working hand in hand with each of those farms.
Just to follow up on that, but if I understand correctly, since we are potentially putting in place an ordinance that goes above and beyond standards, we're not required to offer cost sharing. Is that correct?
I would maybe have to double check. Do you have an answer to that? We would probably have to check with the state agency on that. I don't know. I'm familiar with a lot of the other rules about when it's required to offer cost sharing. But when you develop a local ordinance that's above and beyond state standard, I personally have never been in that situation. So I don't know whether or not we would be required to. I do not think we would be required to. That being said, I would envision offering a pathway for them to get cost share no matter what, because those resources are available to them.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Supervisor Kroll?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Kirsty, thank you for the presentation. Matt, this is great. It's just really great to see the progress you guys made, and I'll try to hide my excitement about the buffer and the farmers that have been accepting of that, so that's great to hear. But my question is in regards to the medium-sized farms and your definition, 309.99 of animal units, and the nutrient management plan. It seems like there's not really an incentive to conduct a nutrient management plan for these farms since they will be banned from nutrient management spending. So kind of wanted to get your insights in what is the incentive to have one of those then?
Okay, sure. So there's not an incentive for them, is what you're saying, if they cannot spread in February and March. So keep in mind There's more months of frozen soils than February and March. So a lot of times, end of November, early December, it freezes, and then we go all the way up to sometimes in April where things are still frozen. So you still have, a good, at least probably 4 months or so where you need a plan of where to safely apply liquid manure on your farm without it running off of frozen soils. So having a nutrient management plan still tells you where those safe fields are for frozen soils. So they do still need a plan on where to go during frozen soils. Our seasonal spreading limitation is just for those 60 days in February and March. So if they didn't have a nutrient management plan, then they wouldn't technically be following state rules or following just best management practices of where to be bringing that. So it really is to their benefit. And we've talked about how manure is such a valuable asset. So many farmers monetize that and put it right into their books of how much of each nutrient is in their manure. You can go get an analysis done. If anyone knows the cost of fertilizer, that's very expensive. So you can monetize and put it in your books. We don't want them to use it as a waste product where it's just running off. So if they can use that and have it incorporated into their soil, that valuable product, some of those other months, it is extremely valuable to them. Is there a monetary incentive for them to do it? The argument is there that yes, what I just explained, that's a monetary example, but we're not offering a financial incentive, I guess. But
No, but having a nutrient management plan does offer, like Christy said, some liability protection, but it also, for some programs, it's kind of your first step that you have to take essentially to be eligible for some of the programs that are out there. So it helps in that way also. And we have had some financial institutes, banks contact us to see if farms do have nutrient management plans, to see if they do want to expand their operations and lend to them. So it's more than just the specific farming side of it. It's all encompassing with some of the operations.
Any other questions? Supervisor Drabek?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Christie, I was just wondering, I attended every one of those meetings from the work group, and I just want to make sure that the connection stays there, that anything that we come up with or any draft that you write up, that those people get first chance to read it over and give an opinion back on. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure if it'll be September or October, but I believe at the end of that last meeting, we had said we'll loop back with a fresh work group meeting date in either September or October, taking July and August off. We'll reconnect in the fall. But I absolutely agree with you. That's needed.
Okay, any other questions from the committee? Supervisor Kurth?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. My question is regarding the spreading the 2 months if there is no frozen ground. Does that mean that there is no frost in the ground and the surface is open? Or does it mean, I'm getting a little unclear on that.
Yeah, so there would be no frost in the ground and the ground would be open. So they would be able to spread on it. We would use, the language is all written up already in the CAFO program for what the definitions are, and we would use that same language. But it'd essentially be like it was 2 years ago when there was no snow or very little snow and there was no frost in the ground and guys could go out and actually do some field work yet, so.
Okay, any other questions? I have a little concern about the smaller dairy farms. Have they been at these meetings and
Yes, sir.
have, say, okay, what do we have to do as a small farm? Because they don't have a liquid manure, but they have a, straw bedding manure with that. Are they able to spread that in the winter?
So if you're under 300 animal units, the seasonal spreading limitation does not apply to them. So it just starts at 300 animal units.
And if you have liquid manure. So if it's just solid manure, packed manure, they could still apply it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, what are you looking for today, Christie, is our approval to go ahead with the draft?
Correct.
Okay. What's the committee's pleasure? Supervisor Kroll?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I'd like to make a motion to approve the drafting of these revisions and have the CPC staff commit to creating a animal waste ordinance and present it to us at a future date.
Do we have a second? Representative Mueller? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Christie and Matt.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, moving on to 7B, comprehensive update to the Madison County Code of Ordinance, Chapter 17 zoning code. Garrett.
All right, so first I just wanted to start off, because it's been a little bit since the comprehensive zoning code revision has kind of come back to the committee. It's been a few months. Where we kind of left off the last time, I did go over some of the surveys that we received through that. We have received a few more, so I wanted to bring kind of what came of those surveys to you guys. And the copies of the surveys are in your packet as well. Just trying to navigate here to the presentation here quick. So essentially, we still didn't, for county zone towns, we still didn't receive all of our towns' surveys. We did complete quite a bit of outreach to try and get these, but we've only received 8 total from our 18. But to give you a little bit of some perspective, 87% indicated that Chapter 17 currently aligns with their town's development goals. The county's administration of the zoning code, 87, they reported was either good through excellent, and then 13% indicated it was poor, but specified that it was due to not having stricter wind and solar regulations. Again, that's something that we don't really have the ability to do. 88% indicated they plan to continue with county zoning. 12% indicated they might continue with county zoning. So they were kind of debating that at their level. So county zone town recommendations for amendments. So these are kind of common trends that popped up. Again, there was a recommendation for stricter wind and solar. No matter how we really feel about those, we only have so much we can do with what the state gives us. So in the sense right now, my professional opinion is our zoning code right now regulates it about as strict as it can, with being in line with the Public Service Commission and the state regulations. We did have a couple towns that would like increased accessory structure sizes in residential districts. In your packet, there's also a petition from the town of Spencer that requested that we increase the size in rural residential districts to 2,500 square feet. I did have a conversation with them, and I just told them we would bring that petition along with the comprehensive update, so we didn't have to do it in 2 separate steps, and they were okay with that as well. And then second, we did have a request to include tourist rooming house regulations, so that would be like Airbnb. We don't have that in our ordinance right now. The ERC historically in 2018, they did make a determination. They felt that tourist rooming houses didn't really affect countywide. It was only in select areas. So at that time, they had suggested that it stay out of the zoning code. Local communities are able to have licensing ordinances in place for tourist rooming houses. Right now, for example, the health department, Marathon County's health department also has licensing for tourist rooming houses. So at that time, they didn't want it in our ordinance. It came up again, and I wanted to present you with all the information that we received. Another item that came up was to include regulations on how close trees can be to property lines adjacent to agricultural fields. So the concern was when fields are being worked up and whatnot, trees on an adjacent property can affect where the tractors go and potentially damage the tractors. My personal initial thought on this, it's really hard to regulate trees. You have to differentiate between what's pre-existing, what's natural, what's planted. I can tell you right now, we don't have the staff to go through and see if a tree was pre-existing or not. Our aerial imagery doesn't get that detailed. I'm assuming the new imagery will be better, but it still presents its challenges. But I did add that on there because that was one of the requests. Town zoning comments, just to give you an idea of the individuals that aren't participating in county zoning. Just some of the things, and a lot of these are similar from the presentation I brought up to the committee previously. They'd just like better direction on how various county processes work. We do our best to educate all towns. So they just want a little bit more direction on various processes. They didn't really get into super specifics, but it's just general education. We had a few towns that wanted cliff notes to a zoning code. I believe I mentioned before. We do have help sheets that break down the zoning code into the districts, like allowable uses and whatnot. So that's just something we're working on circulating a bit more. It's very difficult to come up with cliff notes on a zoning code because zoning code can be quite specific, or it regulates things in a certain way. So, but we do have those help sheets that we're working on circulating more. And then the next, this is for county zone towns still, my apologies. Would like the county to remain open and supportive of township recommendations. That was in relation to like rezones and stuff. I think the ERC committee, since I've been with the county, has done a good job of taking what the town recommends and applying that to rezones as well.
We have to remember that in Wisconsin, government is towns and township relates to land. So it's town government, not township government. Minnesota has township government, but we're like the ones from the eastern part of the United States. It's town government. Township is land. That's a correction.
Gotcha. Thank you. For non-county zone towns, we received 9 surveys. We still have 12 we haven't received. 30% are interested in county zoning or would like more information regarding it. We're always doing things to give the information to individuals who are interested and educate them better, even if it means they're not coming into county zoning. County zoning isn't right for every town. The common reason for not participating in county zoning is still loss of local control. Residents are predominantly against it. They feel the county code is more for urban areas, and their current system is working for them. How can we better support our townships? Communication relating to grants, help with towns stay informed on what's going on in the county, collaborate with the townships, road maintenance assistance, funding for agricultural communities. Not all of these were related to zoning. A lot of them put other things in the survey as well. But again, just wanted to present it to the committee. So I did want to have a conversation on the items related to what the towns recommended. So it's just kind of engaging whether the committee would like to see some of these things in the zoning code. So the first one, I'll go through these, and then if the committee's okay with it, then we can kind of pick and choose if you guys have questions or whatnot. And we already kind of went through these, but wind and solar regulations, again, I feel like ours right now are about as strict as they can be. The state doesn't really give us much latitude as what we can. We can't be more strict than them, and right now ours is in line with theirs. Get the committee's thought on the tree setback requirements for agricultural properties, the committee's thoughts on tourist rooming houses, and then get the committee's thought on the accessory structures in residential districts, potentially increasing the size limitations.
Has there been any problems with the Airbnbs? Have they had any complaints that you know of, at least of any size or any amount of them?
So we get complaints, more or less people are concerned of tourist rooming houses, kind of in the Knowlton area generally. But most of it just comes down to the people that have been living there for a long time. Somebody purchases a house and they're renting it out. And they have an influx of people going there, whether it's bachelor parties or just people on a weekend or something like that. So we have had some calls that come in asking if we have anything that regulates them. As of right now, it's just a health department license. There are some standards with pouts. So for example, if you have a 3-bedroom system, you can only have 6 people staying in the house. Sometimes we find on the Airbnb website or something like that, they have it listed for, 12 people can stay the night or something like that. But for the most part, we don't get too many. It's just a select few every now and then.
Okay, any other questions for Shad? Supervisor Kroll.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Shad, I'm curious, so the reasoning for the square footage increase on storage areas, this is just for rural residential. So I'm looking at the petition and the reasoning why, and it's you stated because there was a violation of this, not because the building was over 2,000 square foot, but the overhang was. So I guess I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts are, if this is really needed, or maybe there's just an exception for overhangs that we do.
So we did, want to say 2 years ago, we did increase the size from what they originally were. Our ordinance right now, you're given a 2-foot overhang free. So that doesn't count towards the size of your structure. What a lot of people run into is when they build their structure, say 2,000 square feet, the max of the rural residential district, and then they build a lean-to off of it. They're assuming that lean-to doesn't account for the square footage of their building, and it does because it's over that 2-foot overhang. The town of Spencer's petition did say the zoning violation. I will say we have had input from other towns saying that residential lots in general should be increased. A lot of that has to do with a lot of our residential lots in the urban areas, or the rural areas, my apologies, they're in the midst of agricultural areas. The concerns I have with going too large, you start to take away area from those smaller parcels that you can use for a septic system or a replacement septic system. So we're eventually going to get to the point where even if you install a septic system today, there's going to be a point in time where that fails and has to be replaced. So it's kind of balancing that, as well as, the standards are put in place by district. So if you have a subdivision that has a bunch of residential districts, you also don't necessarily want to have that subdivision have massive agricultural type structures on it. So it's just trying to find the right balance. When we adjusted it the first time, I believe it was from 18 to 2000, or yes, 18 to 2000. We saw a lot of benefit from that. A lot of individuals enjoyed that. And we haven't had too many complaints about that. We've started to get kind of more inquiries from townships for the rural residential district, specifically those 2-acre lots up to 4.99, that they feel it could house a larger structure. People have larger toys that they like to put inside, whether it's a camper, boats, things like that. So in the draft that we have kind of in the packet, we just adjusted the rural residential from 2,000 to 2,500. Just because you start getting into the 3,000 square foot building in a residential district, and that's quite a large building. Sorry, did I answer your question?
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I guess I just wanted to follow up on the size or on the size requirements for the frontages, the size, acreage and stuff like that. So just to be clear, the rural residential, it's a 2-acre minimum, is that correct?
Correct.
And then what's the maximum?
Well, it technically doesn't have a maximum per se. It's just when you get to 5 5, you're eligible to go into the rural estate. You could have a 10-acre rural residential property. Most people don't like to do that because then you're restricted by residential uses when you could jump up to a different district and have more rural uses. So the minimum is 2. And generally, once you get to 5, people opt to go into the next zoning district, which would be rural estate. And rural estate doesn't have a minimum size for a building.
I'm just going to chew on that for a bit.
Yeah, no, that sounds good.
Okay, any other questions for Shad?
I would just have one.
Go ahead, Supervisor.
Thank you. I was just wondering on the tree, the setbacks for the trees or whatever, is that mostly for shade because you shade that cropland, it doesn't grow, or is it for roots? I'm just wondering what the reason.
Yeah, I think the overall reason was equipment damage. Essentially, when they're plowing the fields or whatnot, the tractors that are going on there get damaged by the trees close to the property line. Is what the reasoning was behind that one.
Go ahead. You want to follow up?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Okay. Go ahead.
Oh, I still have quite a bit to kind of get through, but I just wanted to have those discussions to see if the committee, one, would be interested in any of these going in. Just because these were given to us through those surveys, I just wanted to see if the committee felt it was necessary for us to include any of these in the zoning code draft. Like I mentioned before, we have proposed language for the accessory structure size in the draft that's in your packet. But as far as the other ones, do you feel it's something that the committee would like to see in the zoning code?
The committee would like to have more of this? Supervisor Crowell?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I feel we need to explore something with the tourist housing, especially as tourism increases. It might be something just to make sure that the towns are being heard. So I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how that's is written up, but maybe some guidance and maybe just like a report back at some point, like on the next committee. I think would be helpful.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. The next area, it's kind of most of our amendments that we have proposed right now in the draft ordinance are fairly minor. Our zoning code has been working pretty good for us. There's not a whole lot. There's just some few minor adjustments here. I know when you look at the amendment list, there's like 40 some amendments in there. So it looks like there's a lot going on, but really there's not a whole lot changing. One area we did put in there, and I wanted to get the committee's thoughts on this as well, is for battery energy storage systems, or BESS. So just as a kind of a generalization of what they are, you have a facility that charges the station, whether that's wind, solar, however, charges the battery energy, and then it can be released. That energy can be released at a different time. Right now, our zoning code only has things for utilities, so if there was a commercial project going in, it likely would fall under that utilities section because they would be putting power to the grid. It would meet that definition. But there are some challenges with battery energy storage. They're batteries. They're generally fairly large, depending if they're private or commercial and how big they are, but they can be very large. They're batteries. You can have fire concerns with batteries, local fire departments putting them out. So we felt it would be a good area to address in our code a little bit differently versus just the standard utility. Just kind of, again, just wanted to get the committee's thoughts if you feel we do still have some work we need to do on this portion of the code if we choose to put that in there, but I just wanted to get the committee's thoughts on whether or not the committee would be interested in having that in the code as well.
A question. Would that fall into what you'd still be allowed to do by state statutes?
So battery energy storage systems, there is a chance if it has to go and it's permitted through PSC for like a wind project or a solar, there is a chance that the county likely won't have much of a say. However, on the ones that aren't going through PSC, at least it would protect us in that manner. For ones that are under that 100 megawatt limit, it's still kind of a newer thing, so I don't think, right now, I wasn't able to find anything that specifically said, yep, it's got to be, it can't be, the PSC has final say for battery energy storage systems, but I could see if it's permitted with the actual system, it being part of the same project. That being, so it's kind of up in the air. Right now, it would be a standard utility, and there's really not all that many requirements from the county standpoint for a utility to go in. So this would kind of add a few more protections to that.
Supervisor Drabek?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Would this, is this like for containment of these batteries? Let's say one leaks or something, so it doesn't get into the groundwater, stuff like that? Is that what this is dealing with as well?
Yeah, so it does have requirements as far as the container it would need to be stored in. It has setbacks to, residents, setbacks to other buildings on the property. So it does look into that, the actual container that it would be stored in. It's a zoning ordinance, it looks at the use and it looks at where it lays on the property. A lot of the times we do have the ability to put certain standards in it. I can look and see if there's anything more specific that could go in it for spill containment or something like that. But that's something I could look into as well.
Maybe, follow up if I may. Is this, you're talking for private residences here or for industrial?
So the way we have it broken out right now is it's listed out as private and commercial. We don't have it necessarily just on size because, and by private and commercial, we did go through and propose definitions to those so we can kind of more easily interpret. So private would be something that is used to power something on site. And then commercial would be something that's meant to send things to the grid. So we have it broken out because you could have a large business or something that needs a lot of power. Those units can get quite big. I believe the 1 megawatt was about the size of like a shipping container. So we broke it out as private is it powers something on site or up to the 1 megawatt mark. And then anything over that is just considered the commercial, and they'd have to follow the commercial standards because you're starting to get into the big areas it takes up and the more, I guess, risk you would call it associated with those systems.
Okay, if I may ask again, and this just occurred to me, what about for like the cars, like Tesla cars or whatever with the batteries in? Is there anything with that? Does this have, because them can also leak, they can also do on fire and stuff like that. Does this include that?
Yep, so for under the private section, it's essentially, because there's, if you think about it kind of like a generator for a house, just as an example, it's just basically storing power and releasing it to the house. They would be permitted, so there would be standards associated with even if somebody wanted to put one on their private residence. The private one does allow it to be attached to their home. It does have certain standards that they have to follow as well. Specifically, again, the spill, I'll have to see if the other code references in there address spills, but to my knowledge, spill isn't directly, it's not directly tied in with the code as it's written right now. Yeah.
Any other questions? Supervisor Kroll?
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. What type of ordinances or rules do other counties in Wisconsin have compared to these? This is fairly new, so it's something I haven't experienced yet.
There are other counties that have regulations associated with battery energy storage systems. Sorry, I'm used to calling BESS, and I'm trying to say it out loud because every time I use abbreviations and then it's hard sometimes for people to follow. But there are townships. Ours is quite similar to those. We use a lot of the similar language that's in those. I think the difference between ours, a lot of them chose to break it up just based on size, so megawatt size. I feel it's more appropriate, and this was my perspective when we were drafting this, to kind of keep it consistent with our solar regulations, how we have them, how it's private and commercial. Is it used to transfer power off-site, or is it used to benefit something on-site? And then we also added the size in there to help accommodate, so if somebody needed 2 megawatts, we would be able to still hold it under the same standards of commercial, which would have more strict setbacks and things like that. So it's very similar in the language, but it's set up slightly differently with, a lot of them are like, 1 megawatt systems are this, 1 to this are, these standards you have to meet. Ours is more private and commercial.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I guess if someone's building a house and wants to stay off the grid, so they put in solar, is that considered private or commercial?
The solar would be considered private.
Private.
Yep, and then, correct.
Okay.
Yep, and then if they had one of these systems attached to it, that would likely be private too. Yep.
Any other questions? Proceed.
All right, so just to confirm, my sense from the committee is that we want to continue looking at this battery energy storage systems. So we'll continue to do so. I just wanted to give a general timeline, kind of where we're at with the comprehensive update. So right now we're in the May through August stage, ERC discussion, town comments, CPZ suggestions, and then other committee ideas. So I'd be open if there's other ideas that the committee has that they'd like to see in the zoning code. I'd be open to those as well. But the kind of what we're thinking now is September and October would be where we would release a draft to the townships. We'd also hold one of our public hearings, not public hearings, sorry, open houses associated with that, so the towns could have a chance to come in and just ask questions regarding it. Again, November would be where we'd kind of finalize our based on those comments, finalize the draft, and then December ultimately we'd have that final draft with the hopes of that it would pass through ERC and then ultimately pass at the county board level, so it could go into effect January 1 of 2026. I did put in here, it's quite long, but just the amendments that we have in the code right now, what we're proposing. Again, most of them are either, changes to the references to code. So we found some areas where we had the incorrect references, so we adjusted those. I did just want to touch base a little bit, kind of what we were proposing, just on a few things. So we already talked about battery energy storage systems, home occupation, exceptions for conditional use permits. So generally we require if somebody has a home occupation, a major home occupation, to go through the conditional use process at the BOA. There used to be an exemption in our code for businesses that predominantly construct or do their business off-site. We ran into a few areas where we had some conflict with the community just based on, the type of business. So let's say it's an excavating business. So it's in a residential neighborhood. Their business is stationed at home, but they do the work off-site. Historically, not in our current code, but the one prior, they were allowed to be exempt from the conditional use process. Then that changed, and because there were so many conflicts where people had heavy equipment on their residential lot, there was a lot of traffic involved. It was just kind of disturbance in residential areas. So we essentially took that pathway out. So it seems like we're putting one back in, which we are, but it takes more into account the checks and balances. It says the limits of the type of equipment you can have on the lot, the amount of equipment you can have on the lot. Your business may be stationed somewhere, but you got to keep traffic consistent. It can't be somewhere where your employees are all going, and then so there's not an increase in those residential neighborhoods. So that's something we're looking at putting in as well. We talked about the accessory structure. The only change to that is we were trying to stay consistent with the town of Spencer and increasing the accessory structure size from 2,000 in the rural residential to 2,500. Fences, we're proposing to increase the height, the minimum or the maximum height from 6 feet to 8 feet for residential fences and things like that. And to allow for entryway gates or things like that. Right now, our code doesn't really allow for somebody to have either a gate or a decorative entrance onto their property. So we wanted to include some language with that. We also are including a floodplain policy, or we're proposed to include that. Basically, it's just saying if your project is within 35 feet of a mapped floodplain, our policy is a surveyor has to go mark out that line. And again, that's really just for the protection of the floodplain and the property owner to ensure that they're not developing in a floodplain without the proper approvals and safeguards in place. We also have proposed here a split zoning policy. Over the course of the year, split zoning is so it's essentially where you have one parcel, but it has multiple zoning districts on it. That can add complications when permitting happens, and as well as, making sure uses are compatible next to each other. So the policy just states, our policy is we don't do split zoning parcels. It addresses if it's a non-conforming like it already exists, there's things like that, but it just kind of outlines that in our code. With signs, we are proposing to reduce the road setback on county and town roads from 15 feet from the right-of-way to 5. One of the things we've been hearing throughout the whole permitting process of signs is a lot of these in rural areas, if you go 15 feet back from the right-of-way, the sign ends up being tucked back in the woods a bit, and it can't really be seen from the road. I did talk to the highway department regarding this, and they said they didn't really feel there would be much concern. Again, we do have a clear vision triangle area, so if it's near an intersection, that'll obviously shift where that sign can be. We're not intending to make it block any views of traffic. So the safety of travel will be taken in consideration as well. And then we're also planning on increasing the allowable size of signs. Currently it's 32 square feet, so a piece of plywood. And we're proposing to double that to 64. But again, those are kind of the I'd call them the larger updates to what we're planning on doing. Most of the other ones are pretty minor rewords and just adding some clarification into the code. I'd be happy to answer any questions, or if the committee has any direction as to other areas you would like us to focus on.
Any question for, any question for Shad? So does the committee feel that what was presented here, we all feel comfortable with this going forward and making sure that this gets done? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I just had a clarifying question, and what are you going to proceed on for the town's recommendations? I just want to make sure that we're clear.
So my understanding was for the tourist rooming houses, we were just going to look into some options and bring that back to the committee. As far as town recommendations, it's my understanding the committee is still okay with the 2,500 square foot increase to just the rural residential district. And then the battery energy storage wasn't from the towns, that was staff and whatnot. But so we'll continue to develop that, but that was kind of the gist of what I got. Yep.
Okay, any other questions, Shad? Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to 7C. Continued discussion regarding the 2026 annual budget development and policy recommendations for the committee, including revenue review, of the mandatory discretionary program document and discussion of rates of fees. Who do we have for that?
A good question.
Go ahead.
I believe we're keeping this on the agenda as a standing item, just to make sure that we continue to have the discussion with the ERC to see if you have any questions about our mandatory versus discretionary programs that you want more clarification on. I think both Director Pauly and I were going to give you a brief update here in a minute on kind of what we're looking at for fees, even though we don't have the direction yet from County Board on what kind of increases we should be looking at. I don't know if Supervisor Robinson has anything else he wants to offer right now, or Administrator Leonard on where we are with the budget process, but like I said, Director Pauly and I can give an update on fees in a minute as well, so.
Any of you have some knowledge for us, John?
Well, I'll try, and then the administrator will correct me. I think we've just received the preliminary estimates relative to equalized valuation and net new construction. What were we at, 1.61% increase in net new construction, which means our levy can only go up 1.61%. And when you start looking at the overall budget of approximately 20 million, 57 million of that comes from levy. We have to make up the difference somehow, or we will have to cut programs. So we encourage all the committees to look carefully at the fees that we charge to keep those up with our cost to increase. Next week, the Human Resources, Finance, and Property Committee will be talking about some of the things that will impact the next budget, including our compensation package and where we're going with some of our fringe benefits. And that will have a meaningful impact upon our ability to continue services as currently delivered. So we just encourage you to look at those fees, whether it's the Parks Department, CPZ, or others under your review, to make sure that they're staying current, so we're not shifting costs to places we can't shift it to because there's no capacity to absorb it. But looking at the fees as a way of continuing programs, and particularly if you want new programs to come online.
If I can, Mr. Chair, just
Trainer
adding a
Leonard,
little bit.
go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I think to build on what Committee Chair Robinson referenced, one of the challenges that I'm going to task department heads with relative to fees, because as Chair Robinson referenced, we did just get a couple of pieces of important information, namely net new construction, equalized value estimates, but really looking at fees, at least right now, before we truly understand the cost of implementing the compensation study, look at fees and identify those fees that fundamentally we can't increase, or perhaps we shouldn't increase by what that market increase is going to be. And I'll give you an example, solid waste, right? We can't just increase fees at the solid waste department based on increased cost to do business, or, we've talked about leachate here, right? We can't just build the cost of building a leachate treatment center into the fees we charge at the solid waste department for tipping fees, because if we do that, the private market will react and we will have a lot fewer customers and not enough customers to ultimately fund the activities we have. So looking at fees, at least right now, when you look at that fee structure for each department, and engage department heads to the extent you have questions about, well, are there fees that are more market driven? We certainly have fees for service that people have the opportunity camping, right? You can decide to go to a state campground, a private campground, or a county campground. And it's, the answer is probably not very black and white necessarily all of the time. But if you have for example, a 10% increase in fees, is that going to have a market impact where people are just going to stop going? I think the vast majority of our services, the answer is no. There may be some, again, when we look at solid waste, where it's essentially a business, right? The private market really drives that, where those changes might be the case. But that's where we are right now. As Chair Robinson referenced, we do have preliminary cost data on where we are with our compensation study. This shouldn't surprise anyone. We implemented our wage study in 2022, based on 2022 data, I should say. Think about what's happened in equalized value for homes since 2022. I think the years have been 12, 11, 9, and 9 for increases over those intervening 4 years, percent. So our scale's a bit behind. Our consultant is, the general percentage I'm using is our scale needs to move about 10%. The cost of that, because we have people in between those ranges, is probably in the 7.65% range, so it's a substantial increase. Market-wise, relative to health insurance, as Committee Chair Robinson referenced, kind of the ancillary costs outside of direct compensation, the market is generally between 8 and 10%. And we're awaiting some final, we're awaiting preliminary numbers from our insurance company. But if you add that in, right, an 8%, we're fortunate we get an 8% increase on health insurance. You're probably in that blended rate of you're pushing that 10% number that I talked about. So that's just a little bit of background. Again, the county board approved the costing for the market. We're weighting the market costs, but you put in your budget assumptions, the county board did, the word market for the cost. You did a similar term for the fee increases. Again, the idea, at least the direction I got, is to mirror those two things together. But I think the Chair Robinson did a nice job really articulating the struggle we have in county government because we have limited revenues. To the extent you don't increase fees for service, for programs, we need to fill that with some other revenue. And the limited revenues we have, and we're talking about tax levy, right? Tax levy can only grow by net new construction. And if I'm being very candid, I was hoping for a lot higher than 1.61%.
Yeah. Any questions for Administrator Leonard or Supervisor Robinson?
I have a question, because
Go
I
ahead.
know currently the landfill does not have any taxpayer money. It's self-sufficient. And they have been going for some grants, to be able to do that. And they're also looking for if they can control what money they have in savings, or that they can get more percentage than what the state is doing. And then they're hoping, for the natural gas thing too, to help. So, but I agree, that there's limited on what you can do. Do you have anything in your budget for contingency in case some emergency comes up that you're not going to have to borrow big time?
Sure. So no, those are great questions and great comments about solid waste. I think generally speaking, that's accurate from a general perspective that there's not tax levy in solid waste. I will say that we don't allocate all overhead to solid waste for a lot of the support services. So there's not direct support payments for HR services, legal services, my work with Dave or anything else. But you're right, and solid waste is in a much better position based on some of the actions that we've taken recently to address different ways to cover our environmental risk through insurance. To your point about renewable natural gas operations getting up and running, that should be additional revenue. But with respect to your specific questions around contingency, yes, the county board does budget. It has historically budgeted annually to have a contingency account, both a smaller account that is under the purview of the Human Resources, Finance, and Property Committee, a $50,000 allocation, and then a larger allocation that has been just around the $750,000 to $800,000 mark that the county board, should something come up, that then we would have to have the ability to utilize those funds as opposed to spending reserves or well, really as opposed to spending reserves, because the ability of the county to borrow in the middle of the year, we'd have to budget for that and then get it on levy. So it's a nice thing to have, that amount of contingency, because all of our other departments, I will say over the last, certainly during my time as administrator, I feel like I've asked a lot of department heads to continue to budget tighter. And we have, and they've done a really good job doing that, which means we have less budget in excess of revenue at the end of the year. And why that matters is because that's what funds our capital expenditures in the year following the audit. So it's probably more information than you wanted, but to give you some context, this year, I should say this coming budget year, 2026, we don't have any funds rolling into that capital account because we have budgeted so much tighter, and we've made some strategic decisions that the board adopted through the budget process to spend down reserves. And the more you spend down reserves, you have to keep a certain amount to meet your working capital designation. And right now, as we look at the 2026 budget, we don't have a sufficient amount of unallocated general fund reserve to populate that CIP fund.
Any other questions for Supervisor Drabeck?
Thank you. Lance, I was wondering on this net new construction, is that a statewide thing, do you know? Or, I mean, you just received the information recently, so you might not know, but is this a state problem or a larger problem than just Marathon County?
Oh, I haven't really looked at other counties comparatively to see their net new construction, at least not comprehensively. I did poke around to see a couple of my colleagues to see if they were in a better position than we were. But historically, we've been, Marathon County, quite honestly, has ranged between 1.5 and 2 I think the highest we've had is 2.32 over the last several years, 2.32%. 1.61 is not on the low end of counties. There are a fair number of counties that are in the 0.5, 0.6, 0.7. At the same time, we're not, it's certainly not going to be in the top 10% or top 20%, I would imagine, but I can report back and look. I would say our equalized value growth is consistent with the average throughout the state. There were a number of counties that have seen a lot of growth in equalized value over the last several years that had some lower figures. St. Croix County was surprising to me. My recollection was they were at 6% increased in equalized value. So that again equates to the increased growth in the valuation of homes. But I will certainly give some look to the Department of Revenue homepage or I should say the Department of Revenue preliminary estimate page on that new construction, and I can kind of peruse that and probably by the end of this discussion be able to provide you some additional context. Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Thank you, Lance and John. Appreciate it. Okay, moving on to number 8. Next meeting, September 2nd, 2025. Anybody have anything for the agenda? Please call Mike.
If I could, just interject for your future, as part of the discussion relative to the solid waste reverse osmosis grant application process, we talked about the need to develop a joint venture with the other counties, Portage, Shawano, or whoever they may be. That's something that we should start to talk about, the framework for what that joint venture would look like, and this would be the standing committee that would run through. So I would request that you look at putting that on a future agenda.
Okay, our secretary put that down as a note. Thank you. Any other announcements or requests? I will take a number 9, a motion to adjourn. Supervisor Crowell, Supervisor Drabeck, second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. We are adjourned. Thank you for putting up with me.